Imago Dei, image of God. You are the image of God. So is the person next to you. That is one of the most important statements made in Scripture about you and about the world. Now, if you don't think about it, it doesn't end up feeling very important. But it is the very fabric of society. When it goes, society is finished. When you fail to recognize that the person sitting next to you is a special, sacred thing in the world, and you stop caring about what happens to other people, we are finished as a society. So the last sermon that I preached, I talked to a lot of different people about it, because I recognize that a lot of times if you don't have a certain category in your head, if a category doesn't exist in your head, and I start speaking and giving information that fits into that category, I can understand it can be very difficult to know what to do with it. So the last message that we preached was on gospel. And what I was actually doing is what's called a word study. So if you don't have a category in your head called word study, and you hear somebody start doing a word study, it can be a little weird. Words have stories. Words have histories. So why are these called pants? Is the S on pants plural? It's actually possessive. Pants, P-A-N-T apostrophe S is what it's supposed to be, because that word means pantaloons. And pantaloon was a character famous in medieval Europe, and he wore long breeches. Breeches, long breeches. And so if you wore long breeches, you were wearing pantaloons breeches. Gets shorted to pants. Dun, dun, dun. Words have stories. The word gospel has a story to it. So what we said about gospel is that we have a problem with the way that we tend to use the word gospel today, just like we have a little problem with the way that we use pants. The difference is nobody cares how we think about the word pants, but when you're talking about the gospel, which is the very essence of what we are as Christians, if we don't understand what it is, what it means, what it entails, then we can goof up an awful lot of stuff about preaching the gospel. And I've actually heard people say the gospel means telling people God loves them. That's part of the gospel, part of the message of the good news. So what I did last time is I told the story of the word gospel. It starts with the war runners who come from battle scenes to people that are anxious and worried about what the outcomes of the battles, and they announce to them, we won, good news. So gospel means good news from the battlefront. So whenever you use the word gospel, you're going to ask what battle has been won? What good news is being delivered? What threat has been averted? And it always has to be part of the word. So then I just went on and talked about how the prophets take the word gospel and use it for the coming of God, the end times emergence of God coming into human history, and that the Romans took it and used it for the good news of the existence of the emperor who brings peace to the nation, stability to the world, and then how the Gospels take both and put them together. Because Jesus is the fulfillment of all Old Testament hopes of God coming into the world, and he is better than the emperor. He is the peace bringer to the world, the one who has solved the conflict between man and God and brought a possibility for peace between them. That's the gospel. And then when we talk about gospel and preach about gospel, that content should be there. You were a sinner at enmity with God, and there was no hope of peace there, but Jesus brought peace. Through his shed blood, he paved a path where you can find forgiveness and come and enter before the Holy One safely and be welcomed there. That's gospel. Good news. All right. Now, today I want to do something a little different. I want to look at the concept of image of God. What does the word mean? Because you're going to hear an awful lot of people, you read theology textbooks. I actually just finished a huge theology textbook, 1,000 pages, and he gave 4 different possible meanings for image of God and didn't have the one that has actually the meaning of the word image of God. So when we talk about image of God, we talk about, hey, we look like God. That's what we think image of God means. We look like God. It means we share certain faculties. Like he's creative, so we're creative. He's self-aware, we're self-aware. He has moral structure, we have moral structure. We're like a chip off the old block. And yes, there's an element of that's true. But it doesn't cut to the real core of what it means. And it's unfortunate because being image of God and recognizing that those around you are image of God has a lot more to it. And it cuts to the very core of why you were born, what you were born to do. We are facing a crisis of identity and meaning in this society. We've got two entire generations that don't know whether they are male or female, or whether there's such a thing as male or female. The confusion is so marrow deep, so bone deep, they don't know why they're alive. And they are tearing themselves apart. Suicide rates have never been higher. They are killing themselves out of hopelessness, purposelessness, meaninglessness. And they are confronted in the media, in government, in the universities, in the public school systems, in the music industry, in television. Every time they turn on the TV, every time they open a newspaper, every time somebody speaks in a public forum, they are confronting a swarm of murder hornets designed to tear them down, to accuse them, to enrage them, to disorient them. And believe me, it is their purpose. You can read it in their documents. They've come to confuse, to disorient, to destabilize, to disrupt. They don't want you knowing what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right. They want you hopeless, miserable, because they want power, and they want power over you. And people who know who they are, know what they're here for, cannot be bullied, will not be bullied. No smoking. If we're going to talk about what does this sign mean? So let's tell a story that one of my professors told me once. I'm going to add a little bit to it, but it's a pretty good story. But there's a bunch of guys arguing in a hospital lobby. They see this sign here, and they're all debating over what the sign means. And so one guy comes up and says, well, I'm a linguistics expert, and I can tell you that this is the negative article in language, and this is a participle oriented off the word smoke, and this is a negation of an activity. And another guy comes up and says, well, wait a minute, I'm an expert in symbolism, and I can tell you that that is a negative symbol and a crossed out of a cigarette. And another guy comes and goes, hey, I'm a sign maker, and I can tell you that this sign was made by this company in such and such a place, and the ink came from this type of a machine, and it was put here, and the holes were made by this type of a boring machine. And another guy comes up and goes, well, I'm a wall maker, and this sign is attached to this wall, and I can tell you all about the wall. And he goes on about how the construction of the wall that's holding the sign up. And while they're talking, a guy gets off his motorcycle, comes inside, smoking a cigarette, looks at the sign, and puts it out. Who understood the sign? But there's more to it than that. Because this sign is in a hospital. And it's a touchstone to something deeper. Yes, the guy who had the cigarette, saw the cigarette, put it out, understood the sign, he lived the sign. Kudos for him. But why does that sign exist? Because cigarette smoking is a hazard. It's death. It's a murder stick. And it's not just, I don't want you smoking right here, right now, but it exists because smoking's bad for you. And secondhand smoke is bad for other people. All of a sudden you start going, yes, I understood the sign, but the sign's a touchstone to something deeper, something bigger, something more meaningful. It's a statement about health. It's a statement about civility and existing in society with other people who are vulnerable. So yes, the guy who smokes a cigarette, puts it out because he sees the sign, understood the sign. But the person who understands, hey, you know what? I should probably quit smoking. You should get the idea. There's more to it. The same thing happens when we start talking about origins, the beginning of the world, and we read the book of Genesis. If you read the book of Genesis and you've got certain people who are like, hey, you know what? I'm going to discover how old the earth is. And I'm going to start analyzing the dirt samples, and I'm going to start looking at the microbes, and I'm going to start telling you about this, and I'm going to look at the scars, and we're going to speculate, and we got Big Bang, and we got evolution, and we got all this stuff. Does that mean you understand what it means to be a human being? No. You don't understand what it means to be a human being. And if you are trying to wrestle with origins of stuff, all this stuff that's all there, and you're wrestling with all the origins of this stuff, and you're going to try and read the book of Genesis because you think it's going to answer the question of the origins of the stuff, you haven't understood Genesis either. Genesis isn't about the origins of the stuff. Genesis is about the God who made the world, what he made the world to be, how he made the world to function, and how you can function best within it. Genesis is a piece of wisdom literature to tell you how to live by telling you who you are and why you were born. So we have this great statement by Mark Twain, not much of a theologian, but pretty good with a turn of phrase. The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you found out why. Today I want to talk about why you were born. Now let's suppose we just start talking about the whys of your birth. We can wrestle with the whys of our birth by recognizing that we are a biological entity. We're biological, yes? Now, I don't believe that we can sit there and say we have a body, have a soul, have a spirit, so much as that we are body, our soul, and our spirit, and someday I'll have a whole class and explain the difference. But that means that as a body, you have a purpose. And what's the purpose of a living entity? To keep on living, right? But what else? To reproduce. And to reproduce in a stable enough of environment so that what you reproduce can reproduce in a stable enough environment to reproduce in a stable enough environment. So now this is very important because we have right now a public service announcement everywhere, all the time, that says that you as a biological agent mean nothing. You have no meaning, you have no purpose. We've got women denouncing marriage, committing themselves to never reproducing. We've got people saying, how could you be so evil to reproduce and have a child in such a time as this? And so we're called to reject our existence as male and female. We're not even sure it even exists. Is there such a thing? I don't know. It's hilarious. But at the same time, when you see people that are genuinely confused on this point, it makes you want to weep. So you're like crying, weeping, crying, weeping, crying, weeping, and you're thinking on one side how ridiculous the world is becoming, how silly it all is, and how important it is for us to take a stand. So you are body, you are soul, you are spirit, and you have purpose in each one, and you should be striving. Now sometimes some things go wrong. Sometimes people, for some reason or another, cannot reproduce. Sometimes young men get mumps and are made sterile. Sometimes young women, for one reason or another, can't produce. This does not negate your existence or your purpose for existing, but we have to understand that there is meaning, there is purpose, there is direction. I want you to put your brain into that kind of a mode. I exist. I exist for a purpose. I'm here for a reason, and we need to discover what that reason is. If you don't know why you're here, then what are you doing with your existence? What are you doing with the precious years that you've been given if you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing with them? I was blessed as a child to be taught again and again and again as a young man, Andrew, you are here, and your first mission in life is to find somebody to build a family with, to find a career that will allow you to sustain them so that you can be a builder, a provider, and a protector for that family, and then to build that family. That was the path that was laid before me. Of all the other things, now of course then I was raised in a Christian home, and it is to do all of that by walking with your family and leading your family down the path of life that God has given for you to follow. So we have a purpose. The two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Can you ask a question that's more significant than that to your existence? Why am I here? Where did I come from? Do I have a purpose and a meaning in this life? And the murder hornets swarming around this nation say, no. You have no meaning, you have no purpose. And anything you try and claim as meaning and purpose, we will tear down and rip apart. How dare you? But Genesis says we do. Now, Genesis 1, written to answer just why you're here and how you can function in the world that God made, no matter how badly human beings have messed it up. That's what Genesis is going to answer. That's what it's going to tell you. Now, it does this by telling the story of the creation of the world with two powerful metaphors, the metaphor of kingdom and the metaphor of temple. Powerful metaphors. Remember, Genesis is written to whom? Who gets the book of Genesis? If Moses writes it, now we know that we believe that there is some history to the book here, especially in the time period of David, some arrangement of the materials, but Moses is the key author. I'll defend that. As a scholar, I'll defend it. Not just like, I'm sticking with it. But no, as a scholar, I'll argue and show you that I believe that Moses is the primary author of this book. All right? Who's he writing to? He's writing to the children of Abraham that he has rallied out of Egypt, broken them free from Pharaoh and from the house of slavery. It's not slavery like American slavery, but it's a form of slavery, forced labor. He rallies them. They leave the country with what? A mixed multitude. These people grew up in a pagan world. They grew up in a pagan society. And a mixed multitude of people from that pagan society are coming and following Moses, and Moses wants to tell them a completely different story about the world. The pagans tell a story about who they are and why they exist. And here's the pagan message, just really quick, pagan message. We got no meaning and no purpose. We were the afterthought creation by some egomaniacal psycho gods who are constantly fighting and trying to kill each other, who were tired of doing all the work, so they made people to do work so that they could make them offerings so that they could go on thriving. They don't care about us. They're not interested in who we are. If we bother them, they plot mischief to destroy us. We are very tentatively existing in a world dominated by powerful people, powerful demonic-like gods who are plotting mischief for us all the time. And so we have got to figure out how to create a worship system to pacify them so that they don't want to hurt us, and manipulate them so that they'll try and help us. And that's their whole existence. We have no meaning, no purpose. We came from nothing. The universe has no meaning, has no purpose. It came from nothing, because it came from it just exists. It has no meaning, it's going nowhere. Sounds an awful lot like atheism. A world without meaning, purpose, that came from nothing is going to nothing. So you are an accidental creation of billions of years of chemistry that came into the world for nothing, have no purpose, nothing you ever do matters, everything that ever happens to you is of no account. If I give a piece of bread to a starving man or push the red button and blow the planet up, it's all the same, because we have no meaning and no purpose and no direction, no hope. That's the pagan message. That's the atheist message. And Moses is writing the book of Genesis into that pagan world to help those pagan people discover the one true creator of all. And that is what Genesis is written to do. To tell them why the world exists. You do have a purpose. You were not an accident. You have a God who cares about you, who loves you, who made a good world for you to live in, who wants you to know him, wants to reveal himself to you, and wants you to fulfill the purpose that he gave you in making you. And when you do, you will find true happiness, wholeness. You will have peace. You will have contentment. You will have joy. You will have meaning and direction. So, let's look at this temple. So the creation story being told in 7 days, it is the 7-day pattern of a temple, what do you call it? Inauguration. Wow, what's the word? Dedication. Oh, I wrote the word. Oh, there, thank you. I'm glad I wrote that for myself, so I forget the word. It's temple dedication. Now, creation, in these dedications, we always ask ourselves, where did all the stuff come from? And I'll tell you, Genesis doesn't care about the stuff. It cares about the purpose. It's about function. So you take stuff that has no purpose and you give it purpose. You give it meaning. You take it, so an example. All right. So I can take this, just let's work with our idea and our concept of creation. Because we're so fixated on stuff, let's talk about function. What is that? What's its purpose? Do you think I can make it, create it into something else? Oh, I surely can. Now what is it? Function. So in a temple creation, a building is made a temple. A box is made an altar. An animal is made a sacrifice. And what we're watching in the 7 days of creation is God is taking a tohu vabohu, a formless and void existence, and making it into a functioning world. his temple. At one point, they're actually going to joke and say, the heavens are his throne and the earth is his footstool. But in this Genesis story, he is making the world a functional world. And you have a very important part in that. So it's not about where all the stuff came from. It's about the establishment of divine order over the world. God is establishing a functioning temple world complete with divine idol/image. So when I say you are the image of God, and that Genesis is written with a temple metaphor, how are the pagans that are receiving this, those people who have met the creator of the world, Yahweh, through the great prophet of Moses, this mixed multitude, these Hebrew people who have been living in this pagan world, when they're hearing this message, what are they going to do with it? See, we sit there and go, oh, it means we look like God. It means that God's like, got limbs and a head. Or we think like God. Or we create like God. But how are they going to read it? Because you take a thing and you make it an idol. Just like I took the chair and I made it a plant holder. Just like I took a building and made it a temple, a box and made it an altar, an animal and made it a sacrifice, I can take the thing and make it an idol. Because an idol is a functional word. The idol serves a function. It has a purpose in the temple. And so when these pagan people, these people not pagan anymore, but trying not to be pagan, and we all know that once you come to Christ, you don't just cease to be the person you were before. You bring a lot of your baggage with you for years and years and years. These people are bringing their baggage with them. They've met the God of creation. They've watched him part the Red Sea. They've watched him shake the mountain. They've watched the face of Moses glow. And they are straining for all their worth to not be pagan anymore. They have to change the way they think about everything. If Yahweh is God, then all of paganism is worthless and they have to let it go, but they don't know how. And this book helps them. But when they read a story about a temple world being made and everything being given a function in it, and they get to their purpose and their function, that they are made as image of God, how are they reading that statement? Image of God. Function. They got a job to do. They have a status to uphold. So let's read a little bit about that status. So idols were like voodoo dolls. So the idol was just a piece of wood. Matter of fact, in Isaiah 44, he writes this piece where he's making fun of them. He goes, you got a pagan, and he goes out in the woods and he chops down a tree and he takes a log. He's working really hard. And he's chiseling. He's making a god. And Isaiah is just like laughing his head off, slapping his knee. He's making a god. And he chisels and chisels and he chisels. And he has to take a break. He drinks some water. It's really hard making a god. Really hard making a god. And then after he's done chiseling, he's got to take a break. So he takes all the wood chips, all the parts that he chipped away, and he makes a fire. And he cooks his meat over it. And he warms himself. And believe me, he's actually doing it. He's like, whoo, feel the fire. It is warm. I see the light. It is good. And he says, then he worships what he made, and then the other part he burns in the fire. He's like, so half of it you cook over your lunch, and the other half you worship. There's a little more to it than that, but he's making a very solid point. Because the idol is not an idol just because he carves it into an image. You have to do a ceremony over it. It's called the opening of the mouth. It's not unlike Isaiah chapter 6, when the angel took the coal from the altar in the face of Isaiah, seeing his sin and saying, woe is me, I'm undone. I'm a man of unclean lips. I live among a people of unclean lips. My eyes have seen the Holy One. I'm finished. And the angel takes that coal and touches it to his lips. This is a mimicry of the opening of the mouth ceremony by which a statue becomes a god. Because what it functions as a god is that it is a portal. They literally invite demonic spirits to use this thing as a portal through which it is present and reigning in its temple. It is meant to be filled with the spirit of the God through whom the God rules and reigns. Can anybody see where I'm going with this? Of what it means to be image of God? Then God said, let us make man in our image. according to our likeness, and let him rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So when God said, let us make man in our image, the fallout of that is what? What happens immediately afterward? And let him rule. Because what's the idol do? What's the purpose of the idol? To rule. It is an instrument to be filled with the Spirit of the God, through whom the God rules and reigns in the world. Now he says, let us make man, chop, 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 and let's make him our image. And immediately, and here's the job. You were made to be filled by the Spirit of God, to be his regent, his representative. A regent is a representative king. It's a powerful king who answers to another powerful king. You were made to be kings and queens in this world, filled with the Spirit of God, doing his work, building his kingdom, taking this earth and bringing it under his power and his authority. You have a job to do. So let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. And what does that mean? Let them rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky, over the cattle and all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. And God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Now, the reason I've color-coded this is it's too great to ignore, and that is this poem is so powerful, and you got to remember, when did the feminist movement start? No, it started right here. Believe me, these pagans who viewed everything based on the physical power and the production value that a person had, your worth in the world was your ability to produce. And if you were a reduced producer, if you couldn't produce as much as everybody else, you were not worth it. In India, if you had a husband and your husband died, they tied you down on his funeral pyre and burned you up with him. And when the British government made them stop doing it, they suddenly had all these widows that they didn't know what to do with, and they literally viewed them as worthless mouths to feed. They were an expense. And so they started doing really weird things, like locking them up, giving them barely enough to survive, hoping that they would just die, not letting them go out in the world. Read Rudyard Kipling. He tells the stories of the things that happened and what they would do. Because a person's value was not innate to who they were, but was based on their production value in the world. And when you became useless, you were useless. All right, so feminism. Pay attention to this. So in Hebrew poetry, you have repetition. Things repeat. And if you follow and track your repetitions, you can sometimes learn things. So you have God, and then the second line, God is represented by he, and then the last one, he. Now this God is acting. He's the subject of each of these. He's acting. And what's he doing? He's creating. So he's creating man, creating him, creating them. Right? Those are three lines. And he's creating them to be what? Image of God, which is a purpose statement, a function, your job description. It's why you're alive. It's why you're special. It's why you have rights that nobody can ever take away without answering to God for it. The whole concept of natural rights is here. But when he describes image of God, what is image of God? His own image, in the image of God, male and female. Feminism starts here. Heard one person describe feminism. Feminism is the radical idea that women are equally human. As if this is a strange idea that has existed from the beginning. Now, in a society that rejects this, then yeah, I suppose that might be a radical idea. And believe me, this was a radical idea in its time. And God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, men and women together in the world. Every human being, male or female, young, old, whether they're 3 cells high or 99 years old and can't feed themselves or think straight, they are image of God, precious in his sight, purposeful, meaningful, just by the very fact that they exist. In our world, if you're in the womb and you're unwanted, viewed to be a problem, a hindrance, if you're found to have Down syndrome and are considered an obstacle, a problem to deal with, then they should just do away with you. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the seas. So he says, let us make man in our image, and this is going to be his job function. This is going to be his purpose as image of God. And then he makes them in the image of God, and he repeats it all. And here, in the making, is your purpose, your commission. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. You have meaning, you have purpose, you have a job, and that is a sacred calling. Now, what happens when something does not live up to its purpose? When something refuses to live up to its purpose? What's a hammer made to do? It's got its job, it's got a function. And if it's not serving its function, then it is useless. So you've got a purpose. But you are not useless in that sense. You are not meaningless. You have purpose. But if we do not fulfill our purpose, then we have a problem. So the Genesis creation story had its temple, and then it has kingdom. So now we've just done the temple part. Genesis 1 is the establishment and the dedication of a temple. But it is also the building of a kingdom. And it follows this pattern as well. What you basically have is you have a chaos force that gets overwhelmed. Its territory is subsumed and given meaning and purpose under the new authority. The king appoints rulership and reign, usually at a banquet, to other kings that become regents over all that this king rules and reigns over. And then he enters into rest. That point of rest is when he pivots away from the making of the kingdom and toward the building of the kingdom. When the king has conquered his enemies, secured their territory, appointed levels of authority over the territory so that it does not descend into chaos, he then turns his attention away from all of that. This is his period of rest. And he begins to plot the betterment, the building. So kings would conquer a territory, they would sit back, and they would say, we need temples. We need cities. We need highways. We need waterways. So they would build aqueducts, and they would build, you know what, the people need housing. And so they would take mountains, and they would tier the mountains so the people would build housing and tiers on mountains. They would call them the Milos. They would start planning the betterment of the community, the safety of the community, the building up of schools, the building up of the priest classes, the teaching of the people. This is what this rest comes to, this whole period of rest. And so when we have this rest in the book of Genesis, this is not like God was like, oh boy, it was a really rough 6 days. Everybody, just leave me alone. I need a break. I got to recover from this. He doesn't need to recover. It's part of this concept, not only of the world as temple, but of the world as God's kingdom. And he has now made it. And he is going to appoint his kings over it, to rule it, to reign over it, and to bring it to fulfill its purposes. And so this is what we have. Now, but there's something missing in the biblical story, and that is that chaos is this kind of a bleh, this tohu vabohu, this empty and void existence, is not an active warrior to be conquered. There is no active chaos. In other words, there's no chaos battle. God does not have to fight for creation. He is sovereign over all. He speaks and it happens. The sea is not a god that he has to defeat. The sea is water that simply does its job. The clouds do their job. The earth, the air does its job. The birds do their job. The beasts do their job. Everything in creation is doing its job because he has called for it to do its job. There is no fight. There's no battle. The world was made a good world, a very good world, for us to live in. So this is going to be very important. The pagan who reads this is like, what? Now we do end up with chaos. But the chaos that comes into the world, the chaos that threatens creation, is not innate to the world. It's not found in the sea. It's not found in a scorching sun. It's not found in the earth itself. Where does chaos come in? The chaos image in the ancient world was the serpent dragon. Do we have a serpent in the biblical creation story? Yes. And what does he do? He deceives the man and the woman. This is where chaos kampf begins. This is where the chaos battle forms. And it is this that is the primary job of the regents, to fight and to overcome and to defeat evil and chaos in the world. All right, so just read through these very quickly. All right, so Genesis presents a radically different world than the pagan stories did. All right, Yahweh, which means creator. I don't know if you knew that, the word Yahweh. People say, it means I am. No, not really. It means he who is, but spelled as Yahweh, it means he who causes to be. And he who causes to be means creator. So the word is really just means creator. He's the supreme God, Elohim, without rival, without limitations. He brings the world into order without fighting for it. He doesn't have to fight for it. And he makes a very good world. The world is a temple with mankind given the highest status as divine image. Man is Yahweh's idol in that temple, made to be indwelt by his spirit, and his instrument in fulfilling his purposes in creation. The world is a divine kingdom with man established as Yahweh's regents. So it's a temple, it's a kingdom, and we are made his regents, okay? The 7-day rest is part of the thing that tips us off to this idea that we're dealing with a kingdom establishment pattern, and all the structures are there. Is this crazy? I hope not, because even if I have to come back and do this 5 times, it's worth understanding because it's the reason you're alive. It's the Bible's story about why you exist and what you exist to do. So Yahweh establishes the order of the world in linear time, not myth time. So with the pagan myths, time goes nowhere. It's just circular. It doesn't really have a beginning and it doesn't really have an end. It just keeps repeating itself. And it's always done in a very specific format. But when the Bible tells the story of creation, he tells it in time. It's in time. There's a beginning, and there's a genealogical connection, and the creation of the world is connected through genealogy to the nation of Israel. This is not some kind of a loop time thing where we just keep going around and around and around and around with different faces. The son, the father, then the son, then the grandson, then the great-son's grandson, the great-great-grandson. No, God's taking the world somewhere. He's bringing it someplace. He has a purpose. And so man has a job. So he doesn't use myth time. He's establishing the world with a trajectory, a purpose, a goal. It's all going somewhere, and you have a job in it. Now the serpent, the power image of ancient chaos monsters, entices man to rebellion, but is put down without struggle. God does not have to struggle against the serpent. He does not have to come and wrestle the serpent. He speaks. That's it. That serpent, that devil, in the book of Job, is going to come groveling before God to give an account for himself. And he is on a leash. God gives him a leash, a certain distance, a certain ability to move, but he is in complete control. All right? His ultimate defeat will come through the people he deceived. All right? The seed of the woman will crush the head of the serpent. That's what Genesis says. He will bite his heel, and he will crush his head. It's man that he's at war with. This is the fight. And we are the chaos. Our heart, our purpose, our rejection of who we are, our rejection of what we're called to be. We throw it aside. We don't care. We sit there and say, I don't even know if I'm a man or a woman. And it's pitiful. And it's sad. It makes my heart weep. But it's also enraging because they want to tell that to your kids. And they want to confuse your grandchildren. And they want my grandchildren not sure if there's even such a thing as a man or a woman. They have shaken their fists in the face of their maker, and they've said, I will tell you what I am. I am what I say I am. Does that sound like anybody? God says I am that I am. But now we have generations saying we are what we say we are. And you better get on board with it. They have rejected their meaning. They have rejected their purpose. So Yahweh establishes law among men to keep the human race from reaching a point of complete corruption until the end of the world. This is what we do with 9:6. So here we have 9:6. God has flooded the world. Humanity has so corrupted the earth that whole generation, the earth cannot become what God wants it to be as long as they're on the earth. God is put into a position where he has given them free will. This is what they've done with their free will. He is going to obliterate them. But he's going to save a family. And he's going to start the world again with them. It's not God going, whoops, that didn't work. It's God laying out purpose, plan, message. He's got a purpose in it. He's got a reason for it. He let it happen. He wipes out the world. He starts again. And this time when he starts with man, he gives them law. and he holds them accountable. So man's job, in addition to what he was given in creation, in the recreation through the flood, he's given a job. And what is that job? Law. And what's the basis of law? Image of God, but it's image of God. How do I know when I'm doing wrong to another person? When I am violating their status as image of God. When I kill them. When I beat them without purpose. I don't mean purpose being like I really wanted their shoes. I mean purpose like they're attacking me and I have to defend myself. When I beat them, when I steal what they have created and they have made, and I forcibly take it away from them. And so this idea of image of God becomes the basis for all just law. So Yahweh has a plan of redemption for man and creation, and that plan is sure. So, given this, because the role of the image of God, man, the one filled with the divine spirit, empowered by God to rule and reign, given a commission to honor the image of God in others, and to demand that they honor it among themselves, becomes part of the mission. Those people who tell Christians they should stay out of politics are telling them, forsake part of your job as image of God. It is our job to make others respect the image of God's status in their neighbor. It is our purpose to rule and reign in the world. It is our purpose to bring peace and order to the world, to teach the world the right way, the path of truth, the path of life, and to do all that we can to keep them from choosing the path of death, to punish the wrongdoers. He who sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For man was made in the image of God, and to strike out at man is to strike out at the very image of God itself. It's the basis of all law, all society. The entire reveal about Yahweh and his plan establishes him as a God who loves and should be loved, who is sovereign, thus in control, who is all-wise, all-powerful, and good. Thus he can be trusted and must be obeyed. You were made to be filled with the Holy Spirit, to represent him and his mission in this world. This is your mission, if you choose to accept it. All right, so I know I just said a lot of stuff, and I probably threw some people for a tumble. Have you looked at the world lately and been afraid? So you don't even know what to say. You don't even know what to do. What do you do? What do you do when somebody looks at you and says a man can become a woman can become a man, and that if you don't accept this man as a woman, then you're evil? What do you even do in the face of this? I'll tell you what you do. First, you make sure you know what you believe and why you believe it. You make sure you understand why the scriptures tell us what is right and what is wrong. Not just what is right. So you got the guy who puts out the cigarette. That's good. But you got the guy who understands that sign is more than just telling him to put out a cigarette, but it is a touchstone for something deeper, something bigger. You have meaning and purpose. There is such a thing as truth, and you can know it. And you were made to be filled by the Spirit of God, to represent him in this world, to bring his order to the world. And in Genesis 9:6, to stand and to enforce his law, that others treat each other with all the respect that they deserve as the image of God. If you like what you're hearing today, please subscribe below, and don't forget to share it on as many platforms as you can, and tell your friends to watch. Thank you.